My name is Percy Jackson.
All right, we are 1 week and counting from the Percy Jackson premiere. I mean, so the promo has been coming out like crazy. I don't know if you've noticed, but I feel like all of the trailers are starting to look different or have different things in them. Um, so I'm starting to notice that like on YouTube and on all of the social medias, I'm starting to get trailers that look slightly different edits, which always is a good sign that we're getting closer and closer.
Yeah, that's what Disney does. Like they
Yeah.
did the same thing with Star Wars. That
Mm-hmm.
the couple weeks before the premiere comes out, they put out little trailers that have some of the same scenes, but there's always slightly different ones or new ones in different trailers, and they just put them out everywhere. So that there's no possible way that anyone who would want to watch it wouldn't know when it's premiering and all that kind of stuff, which is what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing right now. I think it's funny remembering how a couple months ago people were like, they don't know what they're doing with marketing and stuff, and I'm like, no, Disney knows what to do. They do a deluge when it matters, which is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares about the stuff that happened a couple months ago? A couple months ago doesn't matter. If they did this a couple months ago, nobody would remember when it was
Exactly.
premiering right now. And so, yeah, it sounds especially silly considering that they put a new, like a either the trailer they've already done or like one of these commercials during Dancing with the Stars, which is the biggest TV show, at least when it was airing. It was a huge show that was getting like way higher ratings than normal because of the Mormon girls that were on the show. They put it during Dancing with the Stars, Sunday Night Football. They just put another one out during Monday Night Football that they put immediately on their Instagram. They put a little preview scene from the chariot race for Good Morning America on Thanksgiving Day, and then had them in the Thanksgiving Day Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just everywhere. Like there's no, and right now is where they're doing press. Like the press interviews started, I think yesterday I think is when some of the journalists and stuff started posting that they started. And so they'll be doing that this whole week. And generally how those things work is that some interviews will come out like before. Like some
Mm-hmm.
interviews will be ones that they'll want to put out before the premiere comes out to like just make people more excited for it. Some of them will be ones that'll come out afterwards. Some of them will come out for a couple weeks because press has seen the first 4 episodes.
Yes.
Um, and the 4th episode doesn't come out until Christmas. And so like Christmas Eve. And
Jeez.
so
Yeah.
they could have, there could be interviews that will pop up then that was recorded now. Just because I saw people asking about that, and that's generally how those things work. Is that you just never know. I'm mostly looking forward to Liam Crawley's interviews are always fun because he's a huge Percy Jackson fan already, and it was like a goal of his to be able to do this kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
the cast really likes interviewing and stuff with him because he actually knows what he's like talking about, you know. Nobody's really posting the leaks anymore. Thank goodness. I think because they put out so much content of their own that people stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
think
mean,
that
I
happened.
so I have trouble connecting the fact that these are still fans that post leaks because I did see one post pop up and it was mentioning leaks and not actually leaks. But it was very positive of like if you're someone who watches the leaks, like what are you excited for? And I was just like, wait, you're watching leaks and you're a fan and you're still excited. So I'm just curious if anyone watches us, if anybody does like actually look at this stuff, if there's a genuine reason why you think it's helpful to. Because
Well,
for us, we think it like spoils the fun.
yeah. And well, I can say that because I used to be someone who would watch something like that
Mhm.
It's like a newer thing that I stopped. I used to read spoilers all the time.
Mhm.
Um, and then stopped doing it. I honestly think that people ruining that Luke dies in The Last Jedi just made me be done with that forever, because
Mhm.
that took away so much from watching it for the first time that I
Yeah.
just was like, no. But I think, at least for me, the reason why I used to read spoilers and stuff was because I honestly was just so anxious that
Mhm.
something that I watched was going to disappoint me, that I just didn't want to wait. And
Yeah.
that's honestly where a lot of it comes from, is that people just don't want to have to wait. They don't want to wait until it's actually on screen. They want to find out now. And so a
Yeah.
lot of fans do like go out and watch it and stuff. Um, and the one thing, it's not like a positive, I'll say, but at least people can find the leaks and watch it if they don't want to give Disney any money. It's very easy to find those because they'll be out there for a while by the time the premiere date actually happens. But mainly it's just like people are just impatient and they don't want to have to actually wait for it to see it on screen. They want to see it now. And for me
Mhm.
now, I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I want to wait until it's actually ready. And I definitely like get curious and like wonder about like what things look like and
Mhm.
things like that. But that's why I get like annoyed when people post stuff that they don't want out there and stuff, because I'm like, I don't want to see this either. Like, this is such a cool, because our friend Tatiana posted something like this the other day, like a couple weeks ago, probably now, when they started posting those character videos,
Mhm.
saying that like it's, you guys need to understand like how good everything in this production is made, to like down to like the social media management teams and like the graphics that they make. And I was like, legitimately, it's
Mhm.
extremely impressive how everything is done really well. Like the character posters, how they sum up every character's journey, and then all the character videos.
Yeah.
It just makes it so easy for you to understand where what they're doing and where they're going. And it's just made so well that it's like, this is a production that's made so well with like every possible level, really, that doesn't happen very often at all. And
Mhm.
especially right now in TV. And so I'm like, I don't want to rush this at all. Like, this is
Yeah.
such a cool thing to see these books being adapted, and then being adapted so well by a team of people that care as much about them as we do, because a lot of people that they hired are people that have loved them for as long as we have. And
Mhm.
so they understand why people like it. And the Disney definitely gave them whatever they wanted after how popular season one was, which
Yeah.
surprised them. And so they can basically, they have a lot of more money and like options for things like this. Like, I don't remember them showing commercials for it during like all these big events like this during season one. They could have, and I just didn't notice because I was scared to watch anything before season one came out because I was afraid that I wouldn't like it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. But that's just, it's a rare experience to see like a TV show being made with such like thoughtfulness and
Yeah.
planning from everybody. That even like, I remember when they were talking about season one, that even all of the directors like would like met up before the season started, and it came up with like a cohesive like visual kind of like vision they wanted all of their work to look like, so that it wouldn't look that different from person to person when they
Yeah.
did the different episodes. And they would have like phone calls during the season. I was like, what? Like, I have never heard a TV show doing something like that, where like the directors that aren't even working yet would call and like talk to each other to make sure that they're all on the same. That's just things that usually don't happen like that on a TV
Yeah.
show. And so I don't want to know anything before they're ready, because I'm like, they've obviously put in a lot of effort to make it as good as it can possibly be, and I just get annoyed when people are like trying to rush them purely because they're bored. that's that's usually what it
Yeah.
is they're bored, they're anxious, they want to know what it is, and I get it. But especially with Titan's Curse, you could tell me nothing and I would be like, nothing bad would happen to me. Like you could tell, they could show us literally absolutely nothing
Mm-hmm.
for the next like year, and I would still be like, everyone would still be like exploding to watch that season a
Yes.
year from now, which is what will be happening. It doesn't
Yeah.
like, I, especially with that season, I will be like livid if they leak anything from that season. I mean, like, this season is such a huge book. Everyone knows it. Like, leave it alone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
leave it alone. I would be so mad if things, especially with of like the youngest kids, like Nico and Bianca, get shown before they're ready. Please no, no.
Yeah. Like with this production, like as you said, because it's so well thought of, because they're working so hard, and working well together, and this team cares about every single aspect of it. Yeah, that's 100% why we in particular are like, no leaks for this one, please.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say, like, I know sometimes when people say that, people are like, somebody called me a narc before because I said something like that once on Threads when all that hullabaloo was going on.
Oh my.
And I was like, it's not about kissing anybody's ass or something, or like, there are people like that in fandom that are just, they never say anything critical
Mm-hmm.
about whatever it is because they want to get like stuff from the production or whatever. It's not anything like that. It's purely like, after watching season 1, I'm like, there is quite literally no reason whatsoever that I have on this planet to question any of the decisions that they're making. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
watched that season, I was like, there's nothing here that I was like, that wasn't that good. No, there was nothing in that entire season about that made me leave and be like, no, that should have been better. Instead, I was like, what am I watching? This is like way better than I could have possibly ever imagined.
Yeah.
Like, I stopped after episode 5 and just like made a bunch of YouTube, TikTok videos, just like literally yelling about how I could not believe how good this adaptation was. And so after watching that and waiting all that time to watch it and stuff like I did, I was just like, yeah, they've earned trust with me now, where I don't have to, they don't have to show me anything until they
Mm-hmm.
want to. And then this is like the fun of when they just show you everything, but also show you nothing. Like, it is my favorite game ever. That right now, even though they're showing us so many things, the big things from this season we still have not really seen. We've
Yes.
still have barely seen any of Tyson. And we've barely seen any um, of Thalia and even like Luke. Like, it's the same scenes that they show us, little parts like a couple seconds longer than the same like 5 scenes basically throughout the season overall, which is what I like about it. Like, don't show me anything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hold everything back so we can actually watch it when the show is actually airing. That's what I want, but it's still fun that they show us things, but still most of the stuff going on this season, we have no idea what's happening. Oh, and the other thing that they did today was Aryan is the one hosting their podcast, their like official podcast,
Yeah.
which will be really fun. He's honestly the perfect host because he's Aryan, and he
Mm-hmm.
definitely had more time during season 2 to do something like that, to do like a little bit extra work than he normally would. But he's the perfect host for something like that anyway, because that child loves to talk.
Yes.
Um, and so they showed like a little promo thing, like, I don't know what to call it, like a trailer, I guess, of just all the different guests that they will have on, which is pretty much everyone you can imagine. I was really
Mm-hmm.
excited that one of the guests was Sally.
Yes.
Um, and so Sally, and I think it's funny that there's a couple of them that were not on set when they were being interviewed, and they have them in like this little TV. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's just funny. Picturing like, it was, what's his name, who plays Ares, and somebody
Oh,
else
Adam
too, but it was,
Copeland.
yeah, it was just funny seeing Adam Copeland in like this little gold TV whenever, and because he's not actually there. And they're not like an actual podcast, and they have like a super fancy set, and so they're not going to do like the split screen stuff like normal. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of hilarious. really funny to see like what the things that they have them talk about in those post
Yeah.
whatever episodes, and like and who they even choose for whatever different episodes they do.
Yeah, like we
Um,
know Rick is one of them because in the trailer they showed Rick for like 2 seconds.
he's also
So
in
that
Stuck in
one'll
the
be
Gold
fun.
TV.
Yes, he is also on the TV. Um, one thing, since you brought up Sally, Virginia Cole, or is it
Hmm.
Virginia Knoll? I forget. But Becky had posted an interview that she did where she basically just like sang Becky's praises the entire time. Um, and she was like, I took a lot of my inspiration from the type of mom that Becky is because you can feel that energy around her. And I was just like, yes, we love another Becky appreciator.
Yeah, Becky is like I feel like Becky's the overprotective mom of everyone.
Yes.
Everyone, like and even the fans. She's like that with pretty much everybody, but just the stories that I have heard that she's shared or other people have shared of her on set, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely your protective streak coming out. Um, because it must
Hmm.
be weird. Like the thing I think of with her kids, at least with them being so famous, is that I think it's honestly a really good thing. The
Yeah.
best kind of thing that could happen is that when this did happen, their kids were older. Um, like
Hmm.
Rick didn't start telling the oldest one the stories about it, but just to him until he was like 9 or something like that. And so it took, until Titan's Curse for it to become super popular. And so um, it wasn't until they were like probably middle school, high school age that their parents became like popular. But one thing that I think Rick and Becky has done really well is
Hmm.
that they're not like their names are famous, but people don't know them really.
Yeah.
Like they could be walking down the street and people would not know who they are. Because they don't really put themselves out there like that because they're not egomaniacs.
Pretty
Like
much.
honestly, that's honestly what it is they're doing all this stuff because they have like a story, a message that they want to put out there, and so they're going to do it. And it became huge in a way that no one could have ever expected, but they don't want to do it because they're like, love me, pay attention to me, don't you no.
No.
And so instead they have always done a good job, even back in the day when Rick would post a lot more on Twitter and stuff. He would talk about how their kids aren't really on social media because of this kind of thing to like let them have their own private lives and things
Hmm.
like that, and just are able to do more normal things than other authors that are at their level of fame or success or whatever that they don't do because they made it more about them and be like, look how amazing I am. And they just don't do stuff like that. And especially, like Becky's the one behind a lot of the stuff that happens. Like, do you think that Rick did all of this by himself? I think it's so funny that people act like there's like this barrier, like this giant like line or this bubble that Rick lived in where he was the author and he wrote all these things and she had like zero input on anything at all or had nothing to do with anything. And I was like, it was her job for 10 years. But even if you pretend like it wasn't, like, or if you don't, even if you pretend like every single morning on Thread she isn't going through the Google alerts for Percy Jackson and just posting the ones that has like interesting information for people that she thinks they should know. Because that's actually what she does, because she's still doing the job that she used to do, even if she doesn't like it's not officially a job anymore. It's like what of course she's still gonna do this. But it's
Yeah.
just it's funny how people talk about her like that. Like she's just like off in this what are you talking about? It's like her
No.
husband's been writing is the one writing these books. They've been together forever. I'm pretty sure that she was part of everything that he ever does or did or anything ever.
Yeah.
I'm she loves Magnus Chase so much that I'm like I'm pretty sure she's the reason why he wrote that book series. because every time anyone ever asks her what series she wants to be adapted, that's the one she always mentions. That she wants that one so bad. And I'm like, yeah, I want to live in a world where you could adapt that series too one day. Not for a few, not for a few years at this point. Who knows what will happen in the future? But I do want the world to be okay enough again where they could do that, and it would be fine, and Disney wouldn't, have an embolism of some sort. I didn't read that interview, but that's great that Virginia was doing that because I think she's a mom. I know she at
Yeah.
least has nephews because her story from the behind the scenes documentary last year was really sweet, that she didn't know what Percy Jackson really was, and then she just mentioned to her nephew that she got like a tryout or something for Sally, and he was like 9 or 10 or something, and he just like burst into tears when she told him
Mm-hmm.
that, and was like, and just started like explaining to her like why Percy Jackson means so much to him, and she was like, "Oh my god, I have to get this part now." And like
Yeah.
she said she remembered that the whole time that she played it, how important Sally is to everyone on planet Earth. And so, and maybe Poseidon. Um
Maybe.
maybe. Like we'll see if they have any more scenes like that in this season or not. But either way, I'm really glad that she's even in the podcast because it means we get more scenes probably than we thought with her, which seems right.
Yeah.
Um, anything more of Sally is always a plus.
Yeah, I mean, her presence is definitely felt throughout the books, but like to have her actually be there more would be nice too.
Yeah, and it's even just like the part of Tyson living with them this
Mm-hmm.
time. Um, one one thing from the newer commercials that I'm just like, oh my goodness, they've definitely gotten like the Percy humor that Reddit is like forever acting like they've died a horrible death because there to them there wasn't enough of that sort of humor. That's like the number one thing they bring up while they're crying about their sad, pathetic little lives. Honestly, on Reddit, um, there's one clip from some of the newer ones where they showed a longer clip tonight with the one that they just did like 20 minutes ago about
Mm-hmm.
where they just have the different characters saying like the words of the different things they run into, and they have Tyson saying monsters, and it's just the clip of Percy looking at whoever, and he's like monsters plural. And I'm like, just the way he said that, I was like, that, yeah, that's exactly what people were crying to their mommies about, that they thought that was missing too much. And I was like, well, if they have more scenes like that, then I'm not sure. I said this when we first started, but I was like, I need the people on Reddit to get over their ridiculous like grandstanding about how they hate this TV show, because we all know that when Titan's Curse comes on, you're going to have nothing to complain about magically. Is going to get to
Mm-hmm.
that season, and you're suddenly going to love the show, and you're going to think that it's great, and you're going to talk badly about people who don't like it, and you're going to try to convince yourself that season 1 was actually really bad, but all the other seasons were a lot better, and they turned things around because they listened to some angry people on Reddit. And I'm like, no, it's always been
No.
good. You just stopped being ridiculous because the kids were not so young that you had to remember that they're literal children. Like,
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that most of the people on Reddit and TikTok that aren't raging racists are just mad about the fact that they had to watch a bunch of 12, 13-year-olds run around. Like, you're mad that they're kids. Can we just come to Jesus about that? You're mad that they're kids. You're mad that you had to watch a TV show focused on making you feel feelings about kids, like good feelings, empathetic feelings for kids, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like, you want to get to the later seasons where you can pretend like they're older than they are, and they're doing much more serious things, and they're in like death-defying situations and could possibly die, or people do die, or the kids that do
Mm-hmm.
die are murdered by their dad on screen, and things like that. Like, you just want to see
Yeah.
that stuff that makes you forget about the fact that these are literal kids on stage, on screen, until you see Nico being a tiny little baby. But still, That's what's going on there. They're just mad that they're children, and they're having to watch children. That's all it
Yeah.
is. Like every day, nonstop. I just get reminded about how many people hate children.
Yeah, I feel like it's shrinking. Like I will say I feel like it's not as bad as it was when William was little. I feel like people are starting to recognize there's not as many kids around, you know? But it's still there. It's still crazy how much is still there.
It's just in different ways now. Like people try to
Mhm.
come up with different reasons for why they don't like certain things, or some honestly some of the time I wonder if they're just that like brain dead about like what's actually going on inside their own head that they don't realize that's why they don't like things, or something. But it's just like, can we at least just admit that that's what it is that you just don't like kids? That's all it is. Like there's something really interesting going on with the Stranger Things show. I never
Mhm.
watched that show, so I have nothing. I have no opinions about anything at all when it comes to like the plot or the character. I don't know anything about that show besides the general thing that I know because I exist on the internet since it's been on, that it's
Mhm.
about kids in the 80s being attacked by something. The people who made the show wanted to do a remake of it, but Stephen King wouldn't let him, and so they basically wrote their own version of that, which is honestly a fun idea to just make your own, but like slightly different or whatever.
Mhm.
But in that show, there is like more of a reason for people to be thinking about this kind of thing because they took a 3 year break between season 4 and season 5. And so
Yeah.
in those 3 years, now all the people that are playing the like characters that are supposed to be like 16, like 15,
Mhm.
16, or like 21, 22, 23. A couple of them are like 28 and 30.
Yeah,
But at least
Millie's
like,
like chasing paparazzis off her baby now.
yeah,
Like,
like Millie's 21, married, adopted a child. The other like younger kids like her, they're all like in the like around the same age, 21, 22, 23 years old. And
mhm.
the thing that I think is funny is that people are saying the same comments about them as they do about our kids. And I'm like, so it legitimately doesn't matter how old they actually are. It
Mhm.
at all. Like Walker was 15 when they did season 2 when his character was about to turn 14. And at the oldest, he'll be like 2.5 years older than his character, which is absurd to have a
Mhm.
character that is a kid where the actor playing them is that close in age, where
Yeah.
he's 16 right now and he's playing Percy when he's 14. And that's pretty much how it's going to go the whole rest of the time. I'm sure that they'll be filming like they are now, where they'll take a couple months off and do the next season, because why would they stop at this point? Disney is obviously
Yeah.
very happy with them, and so I can't. They're the only ones that would stop any of that kind of stuff going. Um, but it's just funny to see people say the same comments as like 22-year-olds as they do as 15, 16-year-old. And I'm like, okay, so it doesn't matter how old they actually are. People just say the same comments when you're a child actor. Because
Mhm.
one thing I really don't like about the Stranger Things season is, like I said, I have no stakes in anything. I never watch the show or anything like that. That always surprises people because it does seem like it would be a show that I would like, but I just always have a hard time watching shows with kids, mostly
Mhm.
because I get scared of how they're being treated on set. And that is something that I just try not to think about when it comes to this show, because Netflix has horrendous stories about how their actors are treated on set and things like that from people who have said things after their productions are done. I'm honestly kind of scared what the Avatar: The Last Airbender kid.
Wrapped their filming completely at this point, right?
Remember if they filmed, if they finished, if I think they did, but I'm honestly not 100% sure because I couldn't remember if it was season 2 or season 3 that they completely finished. Because I know that they were always filming around the same time as the Percy seasons in a really weird way. They're always starting like 2 weeks after they did for every season, basically.
Yeah.
And which was just one of those funny things that they were always in Vancouver at the same time. And so I know that some of those kids are in Vancouver again because the Percy kids have posted stuff with them in them and stuff. but I honestly don't know. But those kids are ones that I wonder about because they filmed their stuff a lot faster, and that production was a hot mess. Just from like
Yeah.
season 1 to season 2, their executive producer was like, "Get me out of here and join Percy," and is one of our executive producers instead. And they did that whole fake out that I will never ever let them forget, that they pretended like they were going to cast somebody who is actually blind to play Toph, and then 2 months later announced somebody who isn't, and just deleted all of their posts as if that never happened. That was
Yeah.
honestly disgusting, like beyond gross. That's honestly one of the worst, like, disability anything I've ever seen a production do. Like, just pretend. Like, you don't post something in June and then announce that you cast somebody in August and have anyone who knows anything about how long the process would be to cast a character, much less a character like Toph, and
Mm-hmm.
pretend like you actually meant that. You obviously were just trying to placate people who would be upset that you instead hired somebody to be a coach to teach her how to act like she's blind or hearing impaired, instead of just hiring somebody, or sorry, seeing impaired, instead of just hiring an actress that is already, instead of having a whole new job just to teach this other girl how to.
I still can't
Stupid.
believe you caught that live. Like, Shannon 100% caught them doing that.
Yeah, it was I saw it and I was like, oh, what? And that's honestly from our friend Sophia's. She's disabled too, and so
Yeah.
we saw that and we were like, oh, that's actually really nice. That's a lot better than I thought they would do. Like when it seemed like they were going to actually cast somebody and was doing like a whole open casting call. That's what they originally posted. They're going to do an open casting call. That's what they did for Percy Jackson season 1, and that took over a year before they even called anyone back for tryouts or anything. And so that's what we thought they were doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
2 months later, they're like, "Oh, they're going to start filming season 2 in like 2 weeks." And we were like, "What?" And then they announced that they did that, and I was like, "Do you expect me to forget that you said this?" I definitely don't. That didn't leave my mind, and so I just like, I was like, that happened, right? And I remember talking to Sophia about it. I was like, we didn't make that up, right? That happened, right? And she was like, yeah, we talked about it. And so then I went searching for it on Twitter and found that all of their tweets were all deleted. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God. And so that is another one that I worry about, because there is some interesting stuff about Netflix, but I will say that
Yeah.
it's interesting to watch the Stranger Things overall fandom, it seems, has blamed the kids acting for why this season is not good. Like, yes, they're talking
Hmm.
about how the writing isn't very good, that it was generally stupid. Like, it's a stupid decision to wait 3 years between seasons, especially when it's a show with actors that are going to look a lot older and you want them to look the same age.
Well,
And especially when it's
and
supposed to be like
I know you
a
haven't seen
period.
it. I know
Yeah.
you haven't seen it and that you're probably not going to watch it. So, just to give you this spoiler, there's a character who was attacked by the big bad of the last season, and like all of her bones were broken. Like, she's essentially bedbound. You don't know if she's going to wake up. And there's going to be a 3-year gap before we find out, like, what happened to her.
There's an actress who's a child actor still playing a character named Holly that is one of the
Mhm.
younger sisters of one of the boys. And she is 7 in the first season. And this is only supposed to be like a couple years after. And the
Yeah.
actress playing her looks like she's 15. Like, I thought she was like a teenager or something, like a middle school, early high school person. And they said, and so I saw so many articles where like journalists were writing articles where they asked the people like why they like changed her age so much and things like that, because she's I guess a big part of this season. And so those
Okay.
are things for people to notice. I do think that it's clearly the showrunner's fault for taking so long between seasons. A lot of people have said this about Stranger Things, and I do generally agree, just because so many people have said it since the first season was done, which was that they had a plan for the first season and had no idea what to do after that, which makes a lot of sense because they were they wanted to adapt it. It is like a one season sort of story too. Until they knew what they wanted to do for the
Yeah.
first season, then it became this ginormously huge hit, and so then they suddenly had to try to like make the story last for more seasons than that, and clearly didn't know how to do that. Um, and so I do agree with that, but it's just interesting how the thing that people are harping on the most is that the child actors aren't acting well in this season. And I've seen so many videos of people being like, not every child actor is good. Some, like, they probably weren't very good in other seasons. We probably just were being nicer to them because they were kids. And now that they're not kids, now we're like being harder on them or something. I was just like, you just don't like kids, like, period. How is this
Yeah.
the thing that is the problem with this? What are you supposed to do on the show like this when they're bringing you back so many years later? You know that you look too old for everything that you're doing. It doesn't make any sense to end on a cliffhanger and then not come back for years and years and years on end. Everyone's going to look older. It's going to be ridiculous. The fourth wall is not even there because it's just so obvious to everyone what is going on. Like, the audience, them making it would just be so strange. That, on top of how Netflix is in general, I doubt that those actors felt like they were prepared for what they were doing. Like, that's kind of like the story I've heard a lot from Netflix productions, is that they're super rushed and unprepared and nobody knows what's going on, and they're very chaotic and they're not well managed or organized or anything like that. Like, I'm not surprised that Rick and Becky were talking to them about doing like the Kane Chronicle series, and they dropped out when that news came out. I was like, thank God. They would. I do not want like anyone affiliated with this thing to be anything to do with Netflix. Netflix would absolutely destroy it. The main thing with that is just the it just is not nice to watch. The Stranger Things people all turn on the kids now that they're not kids anymore, and so they feel like they can just like say whatever mean things they want to say about them and not feel bad. And it's like, honestly, if there's a bunch of actors that all seem to be struggling in scenes when prior to this they were not, it's likely because they feel disconnected from the source material because it sucks, and probably
Yep.
because the showrunners did not like help them with feeling connected to their characters again after 3 years away, making this story that has to feel like it's just like tacked on for some sort of an ending after so much time away from it. It's definitely not their fault that there's struggling. If they're all struggling acting, it's not the kids' fault on screen. It's definitely the production's fault for not helping them. Like that, I felt like that about the Avatar: Last Airbender show too, because that's one thing people said a lot about that show too, is all the kids. And I was like, these kids I've seen in other things are good actors. So it's not like it's not this gigantic group of kids aren't all bad. Like, that's not what's happening ever. That's never what's happening in a production ever. And so if there's a bunch of people all struggling with the same thing, it means that the production is so chaotic that nobody helped them and somehow let things get this forwards in the final episode. And it got to
Yeah.
that point. Can we stop blaming kids? No, they're going to blame kids because they're there. And now
They're
that they're
always gonna blame
21, they feel
kids.
like they can. And it's like, there are things to get mad at with this show. Like, Noah, what's his face, is a Zionist freak. He's the one, like, right after everything happened in Palestine, was going around with stickers that said Zionism is sexy. And was like,
Yeah, it's just weird.
was like being over the line about, like, over the line, saying things like Palestinians are like dogs and deserve to be exterminated and things like that on his Instagram. He went back and deleted all those things now, but they were definitely there. And so there's another, I guess, like, adult actor that's on the show that said similar things. I just remember him and just being like, what the heck? And so if you don't want to watch that show or are mad at him especially, that's totally understandable. But that's not the feeling that I'm getting from a lot of people watching it. Because they watch the
No.
show. It's more, they're mad, they're just blaming the kids acting. It just reminds me of the stuff that happened with like Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen when they did Star Wars and stuff, like blaming them and not thinking like, you look at the script that George Lucas wrote and you say it well. Go for it, dude. You're not going to be able to do it because it doesn't make any sense.
Pretty
Like,
much.
period.
Like, the only person who was ever brave enough to push back on George like that was Mark Hamill. Just like,
Well, they all did in the first trilogy. That's why the first trilogy of movies is better with him, because he wasn't anybody. And so they would
mhm,
all tell him, "What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense." This and he was like,
mhm,
"Fine, you can, not say it or cut it or whatever." And they would just like, because he was just like a small whatever director, he wasn't anybody famous or anything like that. And so they could all do that. And
mhm.
also his wife was still around, and she edited a lot of like all of his scripts for the first three movies. They were getting divorced when Return of the Jedi was being made. And so I think that's probably why there's some parts of that movie that people don't like, because she stopped doing that kind of stuff during that movie.
It's always the
And so
wives. We carry the load.
yeah, and so there was. And then when the prequel trilogy came out, nobody told him no ever. He just like got to do whatever he wanted because he was like such a beloved person, and then ruined it by people like finding out really aggressively that he's a horrible writer. How simplistic, like black and white people who talk about book accuracy are really looking at things, because the person in the post
Mhm,
was saying like the Percy Jackson movies weren't like an accurate adaptation, but they also in the same post say something about how the TV show isn't an accurate adaptation either. And she was like, how could they possibly see the changes in the movies being similar enough to these small changes that don't actually matter in the TV show? How could they think that they're the same? And I was like, they think that any change is bad. They think that if there is
yeah.
any change at all, that is means it is a bad adaptation. They think a good adaptation is a carbon copy version of the book. And so they see any change the same. And so in their twisted little brains, them having Cersei's Island also on Polyphemus' Island and having a theme park with a roller coaster going off where Luke gets eaten by Kronos is and like the and Polyphemus gets stuck in a cave that he can get out of because they trap him there with a rock that he put there, and he's the only being that can move it. They see those changes the same as like, oh, they didn't get like the pearls back in time before the timeline for the summer solstice ended, or they meet Hermes in Las Vegas and they change the way that they get from Las Vegas to California. These like tiny little change, or even the fact that like they figure out that Medusa is Medusa before she says who she is. They see that and the wild things that happens in the movies as the same, because every change is the same to them. And that is why they
Mhm,
have nothing inside their heads. They have no media literacy. And I don't spend any time trying to talk to people like that, because there is nothing to start from. Like the basis they're starting from, that adaptations are good if they are a carbon copy, is already incorrect. That's already
mhm.
off. One of the best adaptations ever that most people agree is the Lord of the Rings movies. Those are not carbon copies of the Lord of the Rings books. There's a lot of things that they do differently. Do you want to watch them walk up a hill and touch a tree for 30 minutes? No, you don't. That's what it's like reading those books. And like, not exaggerating. That's how long he described some of those scenes where I would like forget what was happening and have to reread them again. And so even that is like the best adaptation. That is like a god tier adaptation. People talk about those books and those movies because they are like, I don't know that anything this good is ever going to be made this way ever again. Like people talk about them every Christmas time because I think because those movies came out at Christmas, everyone just, I think about them as Christmas movies too. I always want to watch them around Christmas. And I think it's because they all came out around that time when I saw them all in theaters when I was in high school and stuff. But those are across the board seen as the best adaptation movies you can imagine. Like Return of the King won every Oscar they were nominated for, which was 11 of them. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous that they won every single one, and that like a fantasy epic won best movie and all the other awards that they won that year. But still, like even that, it's not a carbon copy. But people think that that is what a good adaptation is. They think that a good adaptation is a carbon copy that has zero soul and no creativity and just like sucks the life out of everything because it's exactly how they picture it in their minds because they watch too much CinemaSins. That's honestly what it is.
I mean, the way that
CinemaSins did that.
They really did. And, you know, I'm someone who casually enjoyed CinemaSins for a while, but it gets to be so stupid when you're doing that to every single movie and considering, like, if you're not just laughing at it for, you know, like just a silly, goofy time and you're seriously sitting there and critically analyzing everything, you're not having fun. So like a historical costume thing that people will get really up in arms about is a lot of movies that are like Victorian era and older where the woman's wearing a corset. Back then, people didn't wear just corset against skin. They usually had an underlayer because you didn't wash your clothes as often. So you washed the underclothes often. You didn't wash the overclothes. And that concept alone would be so much for a modern audience to wrap their head around. So we just put pretty girl in corset straight on her body, you know, and it achieves a similar look to where everybody's like, oh, okay, it's that era.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. CinemaSins when it started was more I remember when it first started. It was more fun. It was just like behind the scenes information about a production. I like things like that. Like I was that person in high school that watched every single appendice in the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Like the day they came out, I would go to my best friend's house and we would sit there and watch them for like 6 hours at a time. I watched one of the best cast commentaries in existence is the Lord of the Rings cast doing the cast commentaries for Fellowship of the Ring. Like the part that I know people post a video of it all the time is when they're doing like the scene with when they're at Elrond's and they're doing the big thing of you are now the Fellowship of the Ring part. And it's when that scene first starts where he's like, you must all do this. And it's Orlando Bloom being like, why don't you go do it thing? And it's just really funny things like that. So that's where it started. And then it somehow melted into, it was when Gamergate started happening that it suddenly turned into this thing that teamed up with that, where it suddenly became like this purity competition where instead it basically made videos being mad that movies are movies. That's literally what it is most of the time. People are so mad that a movie isn't real. And I'm like, it's a movie. What do you mean that it's not real? It's a movie. It's a TV show. Yeah. Of course it's not real. Do you think that this is a documentary? Like, of course it's not. It's a movie. Somebody made this entire thing for you so that you would forget about these things. And somebody is pushing you down the alt-right pipeline by telling you that a movie is bad if it doesn't follow the rules of physics or the other stupid things they bring up in movies. I'm like, that is just what makes it a movie. That's literally what a movie is. Yep. Is that you don't care about that stuff because you get so wrapped up in the story. Like, I know that I hate something if I notice things like that. Like, I know I've talked about this before. I have no
Good
idea
point.
when people talk about the Percy Jackson timeline not making sense. I have no idea what they're talking about because I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that the timeline doesn't make any
Mm-hmm.
sense because I'm actually invested in all these characters and their stories. So at the beginning of every book, Rick tells me how old everybody is and what they're doing. That's all I need because I'm so invested in the characters' stories that I don't care about any of that extra stuff. The only time I ever notice that
Mm-hmm.
things like that don't make sense is when the character development stuff doesn't make sense and they're doing things that don't make sense for the story or the character, or it's just like lacking. Then I start to notice those other things because the like magic of the movie or the TV show or whatever has worn off, and I am noticing all these things I usually wouldn't notice if I was too wrapped up in the character's story. And so it's like they
Mm-hmm.
destroyed the concept of movies for you and you thank them for it and act like they did you a favor. Why? Why did you let them do this to you?
Pretty much.
Like, I really hate Gamergate. I like God, there's so much about that that just destroyed the internet. Like, actively destroyed the internet and also the world since that happened. Like, it's not an exaggeration. Trump is president right now because of Gamergate. That was a runaway train. Ever since that happened, people like that try to take over everything that people like and destroy it for fun. To push people down the alt-right pipeline because it worked. Because it worked in Gamergate. It worked. And so they just keep doing it over and over again. And it's disgusting. Like, there's so many things about it that I don't even know because I'm generally afraid to look into it and find out how bad the things that are happening during that time actually were. Because the little things that I did see was bad enough that I was like scared away into trying to follow what was going on as it was happening in real time. Because the people being attacked went through
Mm-hmm.
hell on earth. And I just was generally afraid to see what the things that people were saying to them because it was all over Twitter everywhere. When that was going on, you couldn't get away with it. If you liked anything that is considered like nerdy, you would just see it everywhere you
Mm-hmm.
would go. Those people were just those are the people that assume that I don't know anything because I'm a girl. And I'm like, go fuck yourself. I know more than you.